Hey everybody, Andy Hamilton of Track Wrestling here. We are joined today by a couple of college wrestling's all-time greats, three-time NCAA champion Greg Jones from West Virginia, and two-timer Hodge Trophy winner, five-time World Olympic champion Jordan Burroughs. And the reason this call came together, our My Wrestling Hero project, we wanted to pair up some young wrestlers with the guys they grew up idolizing, guys and girls they grew up idolizing. And had a chance to talk to Jordan. He said he'd never had the opportunity to spend much time talking to Greg. And so we made that call happen. Welcome in, guys. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Andy. Appreciate it.
Jordan, you said that you were in 8th grade when Greg wrestled as a freshman. I think 2002 up in Albany, won your first NCAA championship, Greg.
Yep.
JB, for you, what was it that captured your attention with Greg Jones? What made him one of your wrestling heroes?
Well, one, he looked like me. That's first and foremost. Two, at that time and in that era, he was the most dominant wrestler of that era. And that's when I really started to pay attention to wrestling, right? This was before social media. So you can just get on Instagram.
This is NCAA finals on tape delay almost.
Right. So, but like, you can't follow your favorite wrestlers when you're coming up. So like for us, you're like, oh yeah, I watch YouTube videos. Like I follow you on Instagram. I follow you on Twitter. Like all this stuff. I'm tagging you in photos. We couldn't do any of that. So really the only time I ever watched wrestling was when the NCAA finals were broadcasted on ESPN. And we were subscribed to Win Magazine. That was it. That was all about wrestling. So I just remember seeing Greg. And he was one of the few African-American champions of that era. But also, he just so happened to be the most dominant guy of that era, too. And he wrestled in the way in which we desired to wrestle. You know, I mean, like, you have someone that, like, he was like a style icon. Like, I wasn't very athletic at the time. I wasn't big and strong. I wasn't fast. And so I watched Greg, and I'm like, damn, like, if I could only look like that and wrestle like that. And it was just really cool to see. And so he was a guy that he was flawless from his feet. He was very hard to take down, and he could take down people from every position with a variety of attacks. And that was kind of how we tried to replicate our styles. Because we didn't have an identity yet. We were like, I was just trying stuff. I was just trying to find stuff, and he had all the good stuff. So that was why we were huge fans growing up.
So what did you do to try to find out more about Greg at that era? You know, when information's limited, and as Greg mentioned, the NCAAs were on tape delay at that point. I think we were starting to navigate in towards live finals coverage, but in 2002, I think that was, and Cale was going for his fourth. That was maybe our first taste of starting to get the NCAA championships on live at that point. So what did you do at that point, Jordan, to try to learn more about Greg?
Oh, it was more reading than anything. This was an era where, right, the internet was just starting to become prevalent. You know, subscribing to USA Wrestler magazine, subscribing to Win magazine, seeing this guy that way was pretty much the most common way for us to see things. But, ultimately I started to interact with other wrestlers in the sport, and I started to dive into it, like to see who the heroes were. And I could hear other people talking highly about Greg. And so I don't know if is the name Johnny Johnson familiar with you?
Yeah, I know J-Rock. Come on, man.
Yeah, J-Rock.
Yeah.
Johnny was like, he was our guy growing up. And so I used to go to Johnny's Club, Raw 2 for 1 all the time. And he was another guy that was like, yo, listen, you want to see someone do it at the most elite level? Watch this guy, Greg Jones. So he had tapes, highlight tapes, all sorts of videos, cuts and clips from Greg wrestling. And that was us. That was it, man. It was amazing. Because at the time, I didn't know I was going to be like, I didn't grow up desiring to be an Olympic champion. I didn't grow up desiring to be an NCAA champion.
I was the same way.
I just like.
Because we didn't see it.
You didn't see it, bro.
Didn't see it. The only wrestling I knew was the Iowa Hawkeyes because Gable was on his run. I didn't even know you could wrestle in college when I was in middle school.
That's,
you know what I mean?
How much older is Burtis than you are?
He's 5 years. So my three brothers were all 5 years split.
5 years apart. And so I got me and Donnie were like in the same era.
Right.
His senior year.
Your senior year was what?
In 11.
11, yeah.
In 11. And so I believe that was Donnie's senior year too. And so I remember. And it's just, I don't know. It was special. It was special for me because I wanted to be like those guys. And so when I finally got to that stage, where I was actually winning, I'm like, wow, like I'm one of these guys that I dreamed about being when I was a kid. And, you know, I wanted to be cut from their cloth for such a long time that I always want to pay respect and tribute to the people who inspired me when I was a young man.
What do you think your 14, 15-year-old self would think, knowing that here you are having a conversation with Greg Jones?
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know, man. It's a good question. That's a good question. It's sweet, man. I know that, and that's why I always try to walk with humility, because I'd never dreamed of having this. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was groomed for this. I didn't come from like a special pedigree. There was no lineage for me. And so it was work really hard, see what you can do, surround yourself with good people. And then I just started consistently. But
you saying that right there, just like put like a chill down my spine and kind of gave me goosebumps a little bit, because I still have it, because I was the same way.
Yeah.
I was the same way. And, you know, as you talk, I was fortunate enough to have an older brother who did the same thing. The two-time runner-up, third place finisher at West Virginia. So I think we can't overlook the fact of where you started. That the first thing, your answer to the first question was because he looked like me. And I don't think we can underestimate that feeling.
Yeah.
You know, because for me, this person happened to be my older brother, so I could see, feel, touch, and watch everything that he was doing. Yeah. And to me, that gave me permission to say, I want to be an NCAA champion. I could be an NCAA champion. And without someone out there that you have to chase, so to speak, it's still going to be done, but just the value of having that person that you look up to, that you want to model yourself after, I think is extremely important. And I got a little bit ahead of myself there, but you know, I do want to thank you. It's like you said, we've had brief interactions here and there, but never really had the chance to sit down and chop it up like this. But you know, you're one thing I admire about you, man, is you've never stopped growing, man. I guess literally and figuratively, you know. But it's been awesome to watch. You know, watching from afar, gaining appreciation for how you carry yourself as a man and how you carry yourself as a father. And then the wrestling stuff's gonna come, right? But if we're solely focused on hanging gold medals, then I think we're completely missing the boat here. So, you know, just if I could just keep it simple, man, if you keep doing your thing, man, keep being that shining example for young guys like us, and keep raising the bar, man. Keep raising the bar.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you.
Greg, what part of the journey do you realize that you're starting to inspire young wrestlers? When do you start to grasp that concept?
Yeah, you know, and as Jordan was talking, that's what I was thinking about. You know, and I think that's why we got to be really careful of how we, not only how we compete, but how we conduct ourselves, because a lot of times we're not really aware of the impact that we have on other people. You know, how important our actions or achievements are to who knows out there. Maybe it's a little kid in South Jersey. Maybe it's someone in my hometown of 400 people that I didn't even know was a wrestling fan. So, you know, we have to hold that sacred, in a sense that we're able to inspire the next generation, the next Jordan Burroughs, and be that person that makes it okay for, just an example, maybe a young black kid from Detroit to say, I can do that. I can do that. That can be me. What camps can I go to? You know, how can I put myself in the position to do that? And that's something I think that probably somewhere towards junior, senior year of college, I started recognizing how I was started to be treated within the university itself, going to different university functions and things like that. That's when it started to hit me that, okay, we're trying to do something that's pretty cool, pretty special here. You know, and I carried that with me, you know, when I was in class, when I was interacting with people in the community. So it's, you know, comes a lot, with greatness comes a lot of responsibility, right? And I think Jordan could attest to that as well as anyone. And he's someone that has welcomed that challenge at times, I guess, but has welcomed that responsibility.
Well, Jordan, I'll let you take the floor here. I imagine that you've got some questions you wanted to ask probably for the last 15 years or so. What's on your mind?
Two questions that I have for you. One was, obviously you went to West Virginia because your older brother went to West Virginia, but what kind of made him go to West Virginia? Was it always a given for you coming through, right, the pipeline and everyone seeing your success as a scholastic athlete, like, I'm going to follow my little brother? I imagine you were getting recruited widely.
Right. No, I got you. A lot of people don't know, my older brother signed really late in the process. He was actually planning on going to Clemson to play football and wrestle. Because I had an older cousin 1 year. I have an older cousin 1 year older than him, and he was a freshman on the last Clemson wrestling team. So once Clemson wrestling team started going that direction, Nate Carr showed up in our living room in Slickville, Pennsylvania, and recruited in West Virginia. So I think throughout my recruiting process, I told everyone, every coach I talked to was like, yeah, you know, I'm going to keep my options open. But in hindsight, I don't know how true that was, or how honest I was being. That I didn't take any recruiting trips anywhere. I had been down to visit my brother several times, understood the community, understood the people, and it was just a natural fit. So it's like one of those things that it's good enough for him, and it's good enough for me. And I was fortunate enough, Nate left, Zeke came in, him and Coach Turnbull. Had a very blessed to work under Kerry Colott, who is probably the one guy, if we took this one generation further, I think he would be the third person on this call for me. Yep. I was fortunate enough to have him as assistant coach for about a year and a half. And just you know, it was just a place that allowed me to be me. And to be honest, I don't know if I would have had the success that I would have had wrestling at a quote unquote larger school, or with that Big Ten schedule. I don't know how I would have handled that. Of course, we wrestled those guys. You know, it's kind of hard to become a number one seed in the national tournament without a real schedule. So we competed with those guys, but and I think in some ways, I think my legacy is probably a little bit overlooked because, again, pre-social media, but I didn't wear a Hawkeye uniform. I didn't wear the bright orange and OSU, you know. Yeah. I'm a Mountaineer, and I'm very proud of it.
No doubt. Also, I was curious, right? And looking at the assistant coaches that you had in that period of time that you spent at West Virginia, right? Zeke Jones, Olympic silver medalist, world champ. Kerry Colott, Olympian, world medalist. Nate Carr, world medalist. All those guys, like, did you try to wrestle freestyle after your career finished up in college? Like, I didn't know much about you pursuing freestyle.
A little bit. So the year after I won nationals, my senior year, Zeke took the job at the University of Pennsylvania. And I had, I don't know, a month later, I'd signed my contract to become the first assistant. So, you know, and that came with a lot of challenges, especially being so young. Your friends' teammates now become, you know, your athletes, and how those roles intersect could be a challenge. So I think with all of those, I guess, challenges or obstacles to overcome, just early on, I just decided that I was just going to jump forward into coaching. I knew that I could be pretty good at both, but probably not at the same time. So I guess I just made a life decision. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. You know, I want to just go ahead and get my life started, and here I am. So, and then, you know, after my senior year, I had surgery on my groin too, and I'm gonna be real with you. I kind of cut short the rehab a little bit. So part of it was that made the choice easier. I didn't want to put the work in. I knew how much work I had to do to not only get my groin and body healthy, but you know, just get back and jump into the fire again. So I'm very much comfortable where I left my athletic career, and hopefully I still say that when I'm 67 too.
Yeah, man. What about when you got out of college coaching and made the transition over to coaching athletes in MMA? What was that like for you?
It's been the best thing that happened to me, man. You know, it's basically walking into a sport that I've never participated in. I've only watched on TV, and heck, even back when we were coming through, there wasn't a lot of that on TV either. But it's been awesome, man. It's been I'm learning to look at wrestling from a little bit different perspective, which kind of enhances the way I see the sport, the way I see technique. And you know, everyone asks me, well, don't you miss coaching? I'm like, I coach more now than I ever coached in my college coaching career. I don't have an office. I don't have a work phone. 80-something% of my job is on the wrestling mat. So it's good, and you get the. I think we have to boil the sport down to a very basic, fundamental level to be able to explain it to a 26-year-old guy who's never wrestled before but wants to be a fighter. So my wrestling knowledge has grown tremendously, and the new challenge has been great and kind of refreshing in a lot of ways.
You ever think about getting in the octagon?
I have. They joke with me all the time. I need to get a fight in. I'm 37 years old, man. What I need to start a new career now for, right? But I do, and I've seen some of the little posts you made too. And yeah. I think you're the same way. I think if that was something that I chose to do, I feel that I could have been pretty good at it. It just lines up with my style of wrestling, how I see angles, how I see space, and I think I got pretty good at it. But yeah, you won't see me in the cage.
Right. I feel that same way, bro. I'm like watching it's hard, right? It's easy to say from outside of the octagon, like I beat that dude. I could beat that dude.
Right.
Because I've never really taken heavy shots to the face. I've never been kicked in the calf, you know what I mean? Or, you know, taking any leg kicks or a kick to the head. So it's a unique proposition, but you know, I feel the same way about my skill set and my willingness to work, that I could be successful in the octagon. But I'm a tweener. So one of the things that kind of kept me out of the octagon was that I wrestle at 163.
Right.
That's smack dab in the middle of two weight classes. I'm too small for 170. I'm too big for 150.
I'm going to tell you something right now. It wouldn't matter. Pick one. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. You get there.
No, but it's fun to watch, man. I really admire those guys, and it's a fun sport to watch. It's a crazy sport, but that's one of the things that I want to do post wrestling. When I finish up and hang up my shoes for good, I'd really like to create a facility similar to what you guys have there at Sanford Health, but up in the Northeast where I'm from, and help to have UFC fighters, or really MMA fighters, period, make that transition over to MMA and sharpen up their wrestling. There's a guy.
Well, I'm certain you'll find a way to pass it along, man. That's what it's.
Mursad Bektik, is that name familiar?
Yeah. He's one of my favorite fighters in UFC.
Yeah, so he lived in Lincoln. He's from this area, from Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so him and I have rolled around a couple of times. He'll come over to the wrestling room. We'll roll. It's wild though that like some of these dudes that have never wrestled before have some skills. Like
they do, and if you grab a hold of them, it shocks you because they give you a little bit different reaction. They tighten up in different ways. Their hips are a little bit tighter, so you gotta get to your finishes a little bit differently. But I mean, the level of wrestling just in MMA in general, from since I started this, has grown tremendously.
What about what's your goal? Like, what's your ultimate goal? If you could do anything that you wanted, money wasn't an object, and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you like?
Within the sport,
within
or
any,
just in general in life?
anything. It could be in the sport. It could be, an enhancement of your position in the sport. It could be completely.
I got you. And of course, money is important. But I don't have to have a lot of money. I don't have to be rich to be content. If my family's good, I'm good. And to be honest, if I have to lie here tomorrow, I might go buy a couple things, but I don't know if I would be doing anything different.
The same thing. Just get there.
I don't know. I spent too much money on like shoes and stuff like that, but I have a loving family. I have a job that provides me tremendous fulfillment.
Yeah.
I'm able to have an impact and affect change on a lot of people's lives. I don't know. I wouldn't go buy a boat. That wouldn't make me happy. You know what I mean? So to be honest, I don't know. I don't know if my lifestyle would change that much. I mean, I guess it's different when you get it, right? But I have a very good life, and I'm grateful for all the opportunities stemming from the sport of wrestling.
Greg, one of the things I'm curious about is your freshman year, you buzzed through the national tournament, and 20 minutes later, half hour later, Cale finishes his run to 4 NCAA titles. How much are you hearing that stuff, that like people looking down the road 3 years with you?
I remember there was one article. I couldn't tell you who wrote it, but he alluded to that. Like a paragraph was an article, as the sun sets on one career, perhaps we have another one rising in Greg Jones. But going through that, I really didn't really make a connection to it. I do a lot of camp talks. So, we all talk about setting our goals high, shooting for the stars, or shooting for the moon, all this crazy stuff. But I went to college. I wanted to be NCAA champion. I had 2 losses in my freshman season, and it wasn't easy, but I split the score on a lot of people through the NCAA tournament all the way through the finals. And I remember I was on top. I was watching the clock wind down, and I remember the clock hitting 0. And my first thought was, how the hell do I get out of here? Like I just, the moment hit me, and the first thing I thought about was, how do I get off of this stage? So shake hands. I shake the other coach's hand. I go to my corner and hug my coaches, and I'm walking off with my arms around them. And Zeke goes, "You know what's better than being a national champion?" I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Winning it 2, 3, or 4 times."
Yeah.
And right at that moment, I was just kind of like, "Oh snap!" Like that's when it hit me of like what I was in the process of doing. So with that being said, even though I wanted to be a national champion, I was still kind of a victim of not making high enough goals. 17 years I committed to wanting to win a national championship. And I did it with seemed like relative ease at the moment, because you don't really necessarily have an appreciation for it at the time. Yeah. Right? So now I got to spend all summer, man, coach says I could be a 4-time NCAA champion. Now I have 6 months to totally reframe my whole goal set and figure out how we're going to do this. And that's some of the things that I think led to some of I was undefeated my sophomore year or whatever, so I don't want to act like it was a major disappointment. But I think that was the root of a lot of the psychological stuff that went on throughout my sophomore year, that I was just struggling to figure out what my role is, what my place is amongst my teammates. And it's just something I never really got comfortable with until it was taken away from me, right? I mean, the last 2 years of my college career was was the most fun. I can say this, the last wrestling tournament I wrestled in was the most fun I've ever experienced in the sport of wrestling.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. What about you got 2 little boys?
I got two children, yep.
10
and 10 and 7.
Boys, girls?
I got a 10-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. Be 8 in July.
Wrestling?
Not yet, but it's
Not
time.
yet.
It's
Yeah.
time. I've been struggling, man. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I don't want to coach him.
Yeah.
Starting to look like I might have to. So I do a camp back home with my brother every summer. So he's done that 5-day camp, day camp, small thing. The last 2, not this summer, but the last 2 summers he's done it. So that's been his exposure to wrestling. But he grew up in the gym. He grew up on the mat. For me, where he's at right now, there's 2 other fighters' kids on the mat, and they go over there and wrestle around with each other. That's perfect for me. A little free play, start understanding how your body works a little bit and things like that. But my son will wrestle.
Good, man. That's exciting.
Your son's how old?
He'll be 6 in a month.
And where you at with that?
Exactly a month. It's same thing, right? So when I go to camps, I'll have him travel with me. And so I'll find the smallest kid at camp. It's like, all right, you go wrestle with that kid right there. And so I'll let him wrestle around. I'll teach him some moves, and I'll have him come up to the front and show moves. Really, I just want to build his confidence. There's some buzzsaws out there at 6 years old. So one thing I want to protect him from is the kid that's going to slam him on his head and choke him out and scare him away for life. You know what I mean? So he's tough. He's a competitor. He's a driven little one. And so I think he's got the chops, but it's hard to tell, right? Right now, every dad feels highly about their son. And so I've been bringing him to the wrestling room just once a week now. I'll bring him once a week, and I'll bring another one of my former teammates has a little boy. They're about 2 months apart. So we'll just do like the attack bands, and I'll have him just motion and
keep it healthy,
pull-ups.
And I'm good, okay, you don't want to do it? Okay, go ahead. Just go get water.
So like 1 hour, literally 1 hour a week, he spends on the mat. And I'm just like, this is good. And, however much he desires to do it, then I'll start to increase the amount of hours that we spend on it. But, it's what I'm best at. So it's kind of what I want to embark on that journey to teach him. But also I know it's going to be a lot of pressure on him to be successful. Yeah. So
that's good. We're pretty much in the same place.
I'm weary, you know what I mean? And, the tough dynamic for me is I'm real particular about what he's going to be learning. So I'm kind of scared to just send him to any wrestling club. All right, here's my boy, take him, do your thing. So I'm like, no, I'd rather him have no habits than bad habits.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm the exact same.
Start at 7.
I don't want to coach him, but who's going to coach him?
I'm not doing it, but I don't want that guy to do it. And so, we've been messing around with it. It's good stuff. My little girl, she's 4. She'll probably mess around with it too. She's pretty tough. But yeah, man, it's a fun sport, bro.
Yeah, a lot of it's just fun and development. Like I just enjoy bringing the gym with me. That's the beauty of kind of the lives we created for ourselves, right? You have that freedom and flexibility. Yeah. I mean, I bring both my kids to work with me to the gym since they were 1 year old every single day. So my most enjoyment is just watching him just trying to figure out how to throw his body around, do a cartwheel, try a flip, do it, complete it or don't, it doesn't matter, but get it back up and try it again. And he's gotten pretty good at just understanding his body, and that has to be a start of all athletics, right?
Yeah, the cool thing about our positions are they're surrounded by champions, right? Just one day at Sanford Health, one day at the Nebraska Wrestling Room, at the Olympic Training Center. Like, they're surrounded literally by champions daily. So I'm like, hey, just watch this guy. You see this guy right here? Watch what he does. Watch how he works. And that kind of just gives them a mindset oh man, look how.
Yeah, no, I just you come across that Ocho guy that's been doing some of these videos. He did one with Matthew McConaughey. I forget his first name. He's an ESPN or Fox Sports guy.
Emmanuel.
But he's doing uncomfortable conversations with a black man.
Yeah, I saw it.
And I've heard it, just not said this way, but he says, he goes, more is caught than taught. So there's more learning and absorption taking place just by being in that environment, right, than it is from my words going to your ears, and that's kind of what we want to create for our kids, right?
Yeah, that's huge, man. I want to come down sometime. Where you guys at? You're in Florida, right?
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. Okay.
Fort Lauderdale, yeah.
MIA. We got some family down there. I would love to come down and get my hands on some of your guys at some point.
Nah, you're welcome anytime, man.
It'd be a lot of fun. I'd like to roll around with you too. I know you. I see your videos on IG. I see you still get after it.
I'm just getting back into it, man. I'm just getting back into it. Quarantine was rough on me, man. You getting depressed, man? What's going on here?
The older you get, the heavier you get, bro. Like, it's
I'm leaning up right now, though. I'm leaning up. I'm ready. I'll be ready for about 10-minute drill.
You feel good? What do you typically weigh?
I'm a little light right now. I'm probably about 198.
198. Okay. It's not bad.
205 is probably on the higher end where I should be. But let me ask you this. What do you think? What do you feel was your largest period of growth in your wrestling career, and why?
That's a good question. I would say
you've been pretty, in my mind anyway, maybe you might not view yourself, but in my mind, ever since you was that 135 pounder in high school, it's just been up from there. So, and what situations, what training, what outside of wrestling allowed everything to kind of come together during that period?
I would say it was really like external circumstances, like people believing in me and pouring into me really helped me to kind of transcend wherever I was at that particular moment. When I was young, I was small. I was a runt, right? I was a 103 pounder my freshman year. I was a 35 pounder my senior year. And so I really didn't start growing until I got to college. But when I was young, I went to a high school. Me and Vince were the only state champ in my school's history. When I left, there hasn't been even a state place winner since I left high school, since I graduated. Like, we came from a place, there was no tradition, no history. And so for us, all we really had was grit, toughness, determination. Like, we had to build all these intangibles because we weren't going to camps every summer, right? We didn't have a coach who was a Division I wrestler. We didn't have, this amazing club with all these, crazy athletes coming to visit us daily. So I think my biggest periods of growth were between my sophomore and junior season of high school. I went from not placing in the state as a sophomore to making it to the state finals as a junior. And then between my my freshman and sophomore year, there was a big leap in college. But I think really my sophomore and junior year is when I started to really make a transition. So I made the junior world team in 2008, and we went out to Istanbul, Turkey. And so I just finished third in the NCAA as a sophomore. I lost to Metcalf in the semifinals, who eventually won it. And then I was on the team with a bunch of young guys. So I was young for my grade. I graduated from high school when I was 17. So after my sophomore year, I still qualified for junior world team. And so I was the only guy on the team who was an NCAA All-American. Everybody else was redshirt freshmen, seniors in high school. And so, like, they're looking at me like I'm the guy. I mean, like, this guy's going to go out and win it. Then Bubba Jenkins had won it the year before at the same weight class. And him and I were like direct competitors. So I'm like, if Bubba won it, I'm winning it. So all summer, I'm like preparing, guys building me up, hyping me up, like, yo, JB, you're going to win it. Bubba won it last year. You're going to win it again. And I went out and I lost. I lost in the quarterfinals. That guy got beat in the semifinals. I was out of the tournament. And I just remember sitting in like a stairway out in Istanbul in the arena, and I was crying. Scott Chenoweth, he was a coach down in Oklahoma at Perry High School.
Yeah.
You know Scott. And so he came down and he kind of sat and talked to me, and he was like, just kind of like consoling me and just telling me everything was going to be okay. But I remember Manning came out and he had a conversation with me. He was like, hey, listen, this is one thing that you're going to have to understand as you move forward. It's like, everyone's not built like you. Everyone doesn't want the same things that you want. And so you're going to have to start to separate yourself from your teammates by the way that you act, the things that you do. And that was really huge for me because I was like, well, man, like I know I can be good. I know, but I'm afraid to be good, like to kind of pass that threshold, right? I'm like, if I lose close to good guys, that makes me good too. I mean, and so
you need permission.
I did, and I got hurt. And so after, it was crazy. So after that Junior Worlds, I went home to visit my family back in Jersey. And so my dad used to TiVo everything. He had the report on NCAA tournament. And so I wrestled in that bronze medal match, Josh Torella from Michigan. And I won. And then after I walked off the mat, I never saw this interview, but Manning did an interview with Quint Kesnick and ESPN right after the match. And he was like, man, you got to be happy with this guy, true sophomore, South Jersey, only one-time state champ. This guy's already third place in NCAA. Manning, our head coach, is like, yeah, this kid's a warrior. I think he's going to be a national champ. And for me, I was like, damn, like he believes in me. Like I'm a leader on this team. And I remember that year I had taken third place, and then our other highest placer was Paul Donahoe, who had taken third place, but he was an NCAA champ the year before. And they gave me MVP on the squad over Donahoe, who was the NCAA champ the year before. And I was like, damn, like they believe in me, bro. Like I'm the guy. I'm the guy here. And it just changed the way like I worked. Like I started to believe it. I started to train like it. I started to just operate and move differently. And so I went from being 34-6 my sophomore year, and all 6 of those losses were to guys in the top 10. I beat everybody I was supposed to. And if I wrestle someone in the top 10, I spend the whole first 2 periods filling them out. And then by the time it was the third period, it's too late. They beat me, get right in time, or beat me by a point. So then the junior year, I was undefeated. And I was just like, I will not let this guy beat me. Bottom line, I will not let this guy beat me. And that was it for me. And so once I won my first national title in 2009, I really just never looked back. Once I tasted that, what it was like to be a champion, because I was a runt, bro. Like I was small.
Yeah.
I came from a high school. They didn't care about wrestling. And so when I was a national champ and I saw what it came with, I'm like, let's go. Yeah. Like, I'm never looking back, and I'll do whatever it takes to get to it. And it was just it was a special identity creating period for me. And I had a lot of good people around me, man. I had a bunch of teammates that were all Americans. They were tough. They were gritty. They were all diamonds in the rough from small towns around the country. None of them were highly touted. None of them were blue chips. All we did was just train hard and try to beat everybody. And that was it. And I was always tough, but that kind of like forged me into like, I'm willing to put the work in. I mean, like you can be tough, you can be talented, but unless you're willing to match that with the work, it don't really matter. And that was the time. I was like, I'm ready.
I think it's crazy too, just like, just how, like I said, spoke out of it too, just at the time, like there's small moments that occur throughout your life and career that seem normal or insignificant at the time, but sitting here talking like this, and with some hindsight, you start realizing how those small moments start to add up and build kind of who you start to become and build your career. It's just it's light bulb moments, so to speak. But you do how much Fargo do you do? How much summer wrestling do you do?
Never went to Fargo.
Never went to Fargo. I went one time.
How'd you do?
I took third.
I
almost didn't go. I was crying. I remember I was sophomore. I was young too. I never liked to be away from home. Never.
Bro,
and
I would cry literally in my.
I was crying at Fargo camp 3 days out. I'm in Greg Strobel's room. I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I cut weight still. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
somehow he taught
Shut
me
up.
to stay.
You wrestling.
But where I was going, because I recognize some similarities, is everyone's like, well, you won states one time, you won NCAAs 3 times. It doesn't add up. What changed? Like nothing. I had a great childhood. I had a dad. My father coached me, and he coached us hard, very hard. But I also played football. I also played baseball. I also ran track. I wrestled from November to March, the first weekend of March. Well, when I got to college, I started getting a little bit more hair on my armpits, and I started training. I started wrestling properly. You know what I mean? Like there was no secret. Like I came into college with a very high ceiling, because I was already pretty good, but I was barely scratching the surface as what I was capable of. So in that first 9 months, I laughed. My older brother was just graduated. I was taking him down. I shouldn't say beat him, but I was taking him down second semester regularly. You know what I mean?
How'd you get so good, bro? Like, crazy.
Did it.
Yeah, that's real. I was the same way. I never really trained. I remember between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, I spent the whole summer just like with my girlfriend, getting ready to say goodbye for the next couple months. So when I got to Nebraska, I remember the very first workout we did that first week of pre-camp training. We ran stadiums and like handful. I was like throwing up everywhere, bro. I was like literally shaking. I was like, what kind of sick place is it?
The August heat too?
Yo, bro, I was like, yo, I need to go home. I like called my mom. Like, I was like, what? Well, no, I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. This is not for me. It's not for me. It's too hard. It's too
Then
hard.
that's good for the kids to hear too, man. People, just because you're an achiever, they think you don't experience those types of things. You don't experience doubt. You don't get nervous. You're afraid of some things, maybe.
That never changes, man. That never changes. I was talking to Tervel Delagnev a few days ago, and he was telling me, he was like, there's no such thing as a fearless man. He was like, there's only a such thing as a courageous man. No one is fearless. No one operates without fear. There's only the individual that's brave and courageous enough to overcome it. And so I always think of that. It's like, man, I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling antsy. I'm thinking about what this guy's capable of, what he's done in his training. But I also know that I'm ready and I'm capable and I'm prepared. So I just try to rely heavily on those things. But it's been cool to kind of see you and where you've gone because, you know, for me, one of the things that I recognize, there are a lot of the champions in our sport rarely see the same level of success where they have that life that they're content with and they're excited and they're well respected within the wrestling community, you know, and that kind of bothers me a little bit and that rubs me the wrong way. I've seen guys, like we were kind of discussing this the other day, out of 78 Division I wrestling programs, there are only 3 black head coaches, right? And then we also look at just representation. I think there was like maybe 10 to 8% of the entire NCAA of all coaches are African American. You know what I mean? And so, like, for me, I'm always looking like, well, man, how can I leave my mark and be a guy that's going to not only lead, you know, within wrestling now, but for the next generation, like inspiring young brown kids all over the country. Listen, this is a cool sport. Teaches character, teaches integrity, teaches discipline, all these virtues that you need to be successful men and women. But then also, I want to go on and be the future leaders in this sport because I think that that's what we need. So it's been kind of cool for me to watch you and the success that you've achieved because I think MMA really has helped grow wrestling status because all of the former wrestlers that have gone on to have tremendous success in the MMA world. So it's really cool to see you have kind of your piece and, you know, watching you guys like, you know, Gilbert Burns and obviously Logan Storley and, you know, all those guys are really, really good fighters. And yeah, man, just keep doing what you're doing, bro.
I appreciate you. And I, you know, and just to kind of touch on the same thing, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's not gonna be a lot of minority coaches.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of them right now. And that's right back to where we started this conversation at, right? So we need leaders. We need programs somehow to lead and guide young wrestlers to want to gravitate into the coaching profession and become the leaders of our young men and of our future. No different than the Rooney Rule, right? You know, we and if you want to work together on this or in something, but how do we help promote, educate our young men to grow up and be part of giving back and growing to this sport? I'm more than happy to work with you on that. My phone's always open. I'm easy to find, but I think it's critically important that we need to definitely make some progress in this regard.
Yeah, let's do it, man. First, I want you to take down.
What's that?
I want to get a takedown on you first. I want to get a couple takedowns, TDs on you, all the guys in the room. No, it's fun, man. I love MMA. It's been a fun sport for me to watch, and I like wrestling those guys. I would like, my career has obviously been really important to me. But once I finish up completely, I want to be. What's up, bro? Can you say hi to Mr. Andy?
What's up, young man?
Hi.
Hi.
Beacon.
Let me see. Yeah, my man.
There you go. Yeah, that's my little guy, Beacon. But yeah, man, I appreciate you taking the time, bro, to take this call and just answer some questions and just kick it and just kind of discuss.
Cool.
I think this has been a really, really inspirational moment for me, knowing where I was then and how I admired you and still do I'd love to stay in contact, ideally, if we could, moving forward, and hopefully we can link up in the future.
For sure. I think the UFC's come back to Lincoln sometime too. I'll definitely get up then. And Andy, you're welcome to come down sometime too, man.
Yeah, I've been in Fort Lauderdale the last couple of years for South Beach Duels, and I keep missing you at Hard Knocks.
Yeah. I popped in just kind of for a few minutes the last 2 years, but yeah, anytime you're in the area, man, look me up and come check out the gym, whatever.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, guys. Greatly appreciate this. It's been a lot of fun.
Hey, Thank you guys so much. JB, much love, my man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
All right. See you, Andy.